You've shrunk! I told you not to eat any of those blue mushrooms. Nobody listens to the dinosaur penguin. Yeah, viewers, don't touch the blue mushrooms. Otherwise, this could happen to you. Hello, everybody. Sparkster1701 here. And we did warn you last week, if you were here for last week's video, that things would take a turn. We're looking at Devastator's Action Master form. The Action Master figure was released in 1990, and it would only be available in 1990. Because by then, the Transformer line in North America would be canceled after that. Generation 1 line would continue on to 1991 throughout most of Europe, and would cease totally in 1992 in Japan. And for many American fans, they say this is what killed it. The Action Master line was basically done as a cheap cop-out. And there isn't really another way to describe it. As we turned transforming robots into your basic bare-bones action figure. I mean, yeah, we get that now with Super 7 versions of the Transformer characters. But those tend to be better sculpted. They certainly look a lot better. And they do have better points of articulation than what Hasbro went with. And seeing as Hasbro at the time was also doing their G.I. Joe toy line, which set the standard for articulation for 3 3/4 inch figures, the Transformer Action Masters are an extreme disappointment. Since the figures do have a lot less articulation than a G.I. Joe figure had. So, for whatever reason Hasbro thought the Action Masters would be great, they dropped the ball horrendously when they came up with this idea. In universe, the Action Masters are explained as being Transformers that are no longer capable of transforming due to consuming a new form of energy called nucleon. Now, nucleon was an energy source that Optimus Prime found inside of a black hole. And while the Autobots and Decepticons did consume it, they soon found that their transformation cogs were sealed. They could no longer transform until the nucleon would be flushed out of their systems. Since obviously we have other versions that are capable of transforming, supposedly from the same timeline, it would suggest that they did eventually find a way to purge the system, purge that fuel out, and restore their transformation cogs to functional status. But in the meantime, until they could figure out how to do that, they redesigned some of their weapons and built vehicles so that their war could continue. Pretty stupid story, but whatever. It's what they came up with to sell. Now, Devastator is unique in the fact that he is the only combiner to have been done up as an Action Master figure. But he was not intended to be the only one. Apparently, Predaking was on the list to get made into a figure, and he would have come with a vehicle. But since the line sold poorly, he was scrapped. Now, about the only real perk that comes from the Action Masters is that it did bring about a lot of older characters that many of us probably didn't get in their initial release. And Devastator here, he had been off the shelf for 3 years. So younger fans would not have had the chance to get him, because strangely enough, he was not even made as a mail-away figure. So the opportunity was gone. This gave people a chance to have a Devastator in their collection. Such as it is. But I can't fault it too much. One of the last ones, one of the last G1 Transformers I bought was the Action Master of Shockwave. Because I didn't have a Shockwave as a child. I didn't have him until I started becoming an adult collector, and I got lucky at a blind grab of one during a toy show. Supposedly somebody I knew at the time got the other one that was at the same booth. That one didn't work, but mine did. So, especially for running a YouTube channel, that was a nice find to get. But I bought him before I decided I wanted to do this. Alright, going on. Devastator is one of the more common released figures. He was released on card, and he came with a robot partner and a gun. Robot partners, for all the American releases, they would turn into add-ons for their guns, which would change the gun's properties. As according to the card, he comes with a magnifier blaster, but when the two are connected, it turns into an acid spray gun. For some reason. Now, many of the ones that were released the following year in 1991 in Europe, they became armor. Because I do have one of Trax. That was a European exclusive. He was from 1991, and his little partner formed a helmet and back armor. There is a video of it on my channel. You can look it up in the Action Masters playlist. It is rather old, and it was before Larry, so maybe someday I'm going to have to dig that out and redo it. Probably should have done it when I had that modern Trax a number of years back. Yeah, we'll figure something out. At any rate, let's start taking a look here at Devastator. We'll start looking at his accessories. We'll start with the gun, which, as I said, the card calls it a magnifier blaster. Apparently it is different from the magma beam blaster that the original Devastator carried. But it is basically a no-frills black gun. There's nothing fancy about it except for having 2 posts that it can be held in the hand. Or, for other giggles, you can mount it onto the tail of his robot partner, Scorpulator. Somehow, though, I think it looks better in his hands than on the Scorpion. Now, Scorpulator here, he comes in 2 pieces. There's the main body and a set of 6 legs. And we'll show you what's important about that in a moment. But first, let's take a look at Devastator's articulation. And he had what would be standard articulation for an Action Master. His head can turn from side to side, and that's as far as it goes. There's too much kibble in the way to allow it to turn any further. You can rotate his arms at the shoulder all the way around. How well they stay does depend on where. You can spread his legs apart into sort of a full splits. There's a metal bar that holds the legs in there, and it does tend to allow the legs to let go. So you do have to be careful with it, but it also isn't very difficult to reattach the legs back on. You can also raise the leg very carefully at the hip 90 degrees, and you can bend him at the knee 90 degrees. And that's it. Now, in a lot of cases, back in the day, when I would listen to my buddy Hooded Cobra Commander 788, he'd talk about how G.I. Joe set the standard for articulation. Yeah, their heads could turn from side to side. Later ones would have a ball joint so it could rock up and down. Their arms could reach out to the side in addition to rotating. You could bend them at the elbow. And then in 1985, they had the bicep swivel. They could be twisted at the hip because they had an O-ring design. And then the leg articulation was pretty much the same. And then you look at this. This is something that Hasbro was making at the time they were still making G.I. Joes. And this is pathetic. There's no getting around it. Okay, after we've had a short break, let's get him transformed into the new gun. Since we can remove Scorpulator's legs to be able to do the transformation, they say you can plug them into Devastator's back, and he can carry it on his back. Gives him sort of a backpack unit. Either that or Devastator's trying to be an upgraded form of Dr. Octopus, for all you Spider-Man fans. Then we come here to Scorpulator, where you fold his tail back out of the way. We pull this green button back. Where the heck did I get red? Must be my shirt. And this one's kind of stiff, so you just flip out the gun there. Fold up the scorpion claws. Fold the tail back into position. And then plug the gun in here. And then now, the magnifier blaster is an acid spray gun. I still have no idea how that works, but that's what it does. And then we just reattach it here. And then we come upon another little gripe about their guns. I mean, it's nice that he has the two grips on there, but because of him not having any extra articulation, he can't grip the gun properly. I mean, yeah, we could have him hold it in just the one hand, like they show in all the art, but as the tension spring isn't the greatest on there, part of the Scorpulator falls forward. And then when we try to raise it up, he can't clear his shoulders, so he can't even aim the gun properly. And that was one of the things that Hasbro took pride in with them. Even with the poor articulation that we had beforehand, they should at least be able to aim their guns. And the only way you can do it is to do it like this. But he can't hold it properly because he can't reach the grip. And he can barely turn his head far enough in the right angle to do it. So it's kind of... This is bad. There we go. Now we got everybody in the proper place. We'll take a look at his card backer. Of course, unfortunately, the front side of this card is shot to any bad place you can think of. But I do want to point out, and he fell down. Push him back. I want to point out this is a special one because as you can see here, distributed in the UK. So this is the UK variant of the card, but there's really not much different between it and the American one. I mean, you got the Transformer Action Master logo up here. We got a set of power plans here, and this is showing the prototype of the toy. And they got some weird things that they say certain parts of his body are. Like I say, he's got a mental image intensifier built into the super wing, along with an energy storage reactor. Well, that part makes sense. But why does Mixmaster's cement drum, where he mixes all the chemicals, now a subelectric cooling section? None of it makes any real sense. It's all just gobbledygook that they put on there because they thought it sounded cool. And then up here we got everything the toy came with. Devastator himself, the magnifier blaster, and Scorpulator. Then they show you how you can have him hold the gun, or have Scorpulator hold it. Then start the transformation by plugging the legs in on the back and then going through the motions to make the gun. We got the barcode here and the robot points. Why they still gave them to us at this point is hard to say, because there were not any real promotions going on by then, but apparently Devastator was worth 1.5 points. And then we get down here to the card. It's still done up in purple to signify he's a Decepticon. It even says it above him. It gives his name as Devastator. His function is still Warrior, and he still has the same quote of thinking and winning do not mix. Awesome and terrifying. Programmed for the sole purpose of crushing everything in his path. He is the embodiment of a life form which takes full advantage of his enemy's weaknesses and uses them for their destruction. Which is horse hockey. Devastator's not that smart. His ferocious partner, Scorpulator, conducts attacks without reason and warning, ripping his victims to scrap metal with his razor-sharp claws. Scorpulator's tail shoots twin pulse laser beams. Changes into acid spray gun. What a load of... Basically, as they would say in the UK about this, what a load of rubbish. Now we get over here to the tech spec grid. This style of grid was introduced in 1990. I don't know why they had to go vertical instead of leaving it horizontal like it had been the year prior, but whatever. It gives his strength as 10, his intelligence is 2, his speed is 1, his endurance is 9, his rank is 6, his courage is 10, his firepower is 8, and his skill is 5. Now, if we bring the other one back over here, because I still had it out, it basically will show that in the process of this, his speed has went down by 1 point. And yeah, his rank's still the same. Firepower is the same. His skill may have went down a bit, so a couple of these might have went down a bit during this upgrade, but otherwise it seems to be faithful to the original. So now we get down to my thoughts. And I think you probably already know where this is going. But we are obliged to tell you anyways. And the opinion is pretty much like what it is with all the others. This is terrible. This is a bad compromise to Devastator. I mean, we went from this giant monstrosity in the years prior to this. Now, I mean, granted, the little one does have more articulation than the big one. But the big one has better still in the fact that he can at least aim his gun properly. The small one can't even do that right. So all in all, it is a disappointment, And then when you factor in that Hasbro was making G.I. Joes at the time, and they had more articulation than the Action Masters, it brings to mind, why did they even think this was a good idea? The only plus, like I said, is that if you missed out on the first run for Devastator, you had another chance to get one. Unfortunately, when you compare the two of them side by side, size-wise, he's terrible. The Action Master one is basically worthless. There isn't much to redeem him. And unfortunately, it will remain a dark, dark part of Devastator's legacy. We start off with something good, and unfortunately, by the end of the G1 line, we get something pathetic. Devastator, as a legend, did not deserve this. But all legends do have black marks in them. So, we'll say that's the black mark and call it a day. At any rate, that's my look at the Action Master version of Devastator. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please do remember that if you love the content Larry and I put out, we would certainly appreciate likes, shares, comments, and subscriptions. YouTube is monitoring for all activity on videos. So it's just a small click and words from all of you, but it's much appreciated by all of us here making your videos to keep you entertained. Now, next time for our look at Devastator, we've got something that's totally different. So, be ready to check it out. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.